Hi everyone, welcome to my professor note. This is Bhupesh Sharma. This is our fourth class in the series of History of English Literature under the course UGC Net English Complete Course. Right. So this is the fourth class, and here we are covering the age of Renaissance. Whether you call it the age of revival or the age of Renaissance, both of the things are the same. So Renaissance means rebirth, and it also means revival, resurrection, restoration. Right. So it was the rebirth of what? It was the rebirth of the learning and the culture. And how did this rebirth happen? It was due to an event which took place in the 1453. What was that? It was the fall of Constantinople. What was this fall of Constantinople? It was the capital of the Byzantium Empire, and Turks attacked on them. And then what did happen? The Greek scholars ran away, fled to Italy with their classical texts and knowledge. And this is from here that knowledge got exposed to the world, where there was philosophy, politics, history, science, logic, rhetoric, and many other things. The whole world got blessed with that knowledge, and this is how they developed a new way of thinking. Right? What was that new way of thinking? It is called the Renaissance humanism. Renaissance humanism, which was more focused on the reason rather than on religion. It was man-centric than God-centric. They bring the man into the center. Man was made the center of universe rather than the God. Reason became the main controlling force of human behavior than the religion. That is what your Renaissance humanism is. It was emphasizing on the human potential, on the human ability to think, to explore, their range of capability, the human experience. And to understand this, they revived the classical studies, the study of ancient Greek and Roman scholars, right? And this is what we call the Renaissance humanism. There is another concept that is related to it, which is the Renaissance man. Renaissance man. Renaissance man is a well-versed man in all form of knowledge, whether it's art or literature or science or philosophy. One of the example we get to see in the Dr. Faustus, the play by your Christopher Marlowe, right? And why are we giving here an example of the Elizabethan age? Because this is the age when your age of Renaissance reached its peak. It is merely the beginning, and the first event took place in the 1453, right? And there was a time in England when a person was not a completely educated until they have visited the one of the center of Renaissance in Italy and have taken lesson and classes on the classical knowledge. Only after that they were considered the fully educated. That was the influence of that age of Renaissance, right? So this is how it happened. And in the humanist schools were established in England, and Thomas More, Erasmus, who wrote the Praise of Folly work, he has written, they played a most significant role in that. Right. So that is to give you an idea that what was the Renaissance, what actually happened. Now, when I said that the Renaissance humanism, that men became the center. Now, one of the example of it is the Henry VIII. What did Henry VIII do? So Henry VIII is the descendant of the John of Gaunt, who was friend of the Chaucer, right? He is the descendant of the John of Gaunt, Lancastrian house, right? So what did Henry VIII did? He married 6 times in a search to father a son, and all of these 6 of his wife give him 1 son and 2 daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, and the name of the son is the Edward. And he wanted to give divorce to his wife called the Catherine of Aragon. He wanted to give her divorce, but the Catholic Church was the main authority, right? Your Roman Church was controlling the whole Europe. Roman Church was the main controlling force of the whole Europe. That was the main authority, the head, right? So they denied, they did not allow this action. And Thomas More also opposed the divorce, and for that sake, he was beheaded by the Henry VIII. And the Thomas More who wrote the Utopia, we will be discussing this later in this video. So Henry VIII, due to this, came into conflict with the Catholic Church, and he closed down the Catholic Church in England. He destroyed their monasteries. Whatever was there in these monasteries, the ancient learning, the history, the culture, he destroyed everything, every mark of it. And then what happened? He established himself as the head of the state and head of the church. Right? This is how the men came into the center rather than the religion. Now this move, I'm just giving an example, right? So, and which is true, which is the true example, is not some sort of fictional example. And this move of sitting himself, making himself the center of the church and the state, it really revolutionized the way of thinking, because now religion is not controlling you, it is reason now that is controlling the human behavior. So now they got the exposure. Now they are exploring beyond the limits. The limits till now, they were stifled, right, and regressed by the religion. They couldn't do things that they wanted to do. Now this is the time to use their imagination, to do whatever they want to, right? It is a new era, a new way of thinking, and this is what your Renaissance is. All right, since we have discussed this, there are a few other events which are very important to discuss. As I told you that in every single age we will be discussing the events, the writers and their work, and this is how we conclude the whole age, right? So what are the events? The first event I discussed with you, that was the 1453, your fall of Constantinople. The another event, the new things were happening, right? This is the era of the invention. So what was the invention? Invention of printing press. Printing press by Johannes Wittenberg. I hope this is the right spelling. Johannes Wittenberg. He was a German inventor. He invented the printing press in the 1436, and this printing press was installed in England in the 1476 by William Caxton. And in India, the printing press was installed in the 1516 by Portuguese in Goa for the first time, right? Just to give you an idea that what was happening in India as well. Then after that, another revolution was they start to discover the lands, the another places beyond the Europe. So it was your Christopher who discovered the America in 1492, right? Christopher Columbus. Then we have Vasco da Gama, who discovered India in the 1497, right? He arrived at the Malabar coast of Calicut in the 1497. So these discoveries were happening. These were the events which took place during this time period, right? So this is what was happening back then. Beside this, the another event, very very important event, which helped the England to be a part of this whole movement, which is the age of Renaissance, that is the end of the War of Roses. War of Roses was a civil war to gain the power of England, to sit on the throne of the England. It was between the House of Lancastrian and the House of York. It was happening between them. So House of Lancastrian symbolizes the red roses and York symbolizes the white roses, and it was happening among them. Then it was fought between the 1455 to 1485. Almost for 30 years this war was going on. Then what happened? The Henry Tudor defeated the Richard III, who was the descendant of House of York. Who he defeated? Richard III. In 1485, and he consolidated this dynasty of Tudor. This is how your dynasty of Tudor came into existence. And the Henry VIII and Elizabeth, also the descendant of this dynasty, right? And this dynasty of Henry Tudor has its roots in the Lancastrian house. Who was the king of the Lancastrian house that we know? The John of Gaunt, the friend of the Chaucer, on whose wife death he wrote the book of Duchess to commemorate her death, right? So this is how we can create here links between one another, right? So now you got what was War of Roses, right? And this war drained the energy of England, right? They were unable to focus on new things, they were unable to focus on creativity, and when these things came to an end, there was development. Now they can focus on the other things as well, right? This is how a Renaissance movement came into England, right? And this Renaissance movement came way before this time in Italy, and after that the influence was coming. As I said, that nobody was considered fully educated until they have not taken classes in the Renaissance city, Florence. That was the center of Renaissance, right? So these are the events which has your political, social, and the historical influences. All right, so what is another thing we have to know about a language? So during this time, what happened when these war was happening? 100 years of war took place, and England, they just lose most of their control, their holdings on the land of French, right? On the France land, the land they had in this country of France, they lose the hold on all of those areas. Then what was the use? What was the purpose of the French language? They just paid more attention towards their own language, right? This is how your French language was replaced by the English language. So these war also has impact on the language as well. In the Black Death, your 1/3 of England was wiped out, right? Half of the population, 1/3 of the population was wiped out in this Black Death. So there was a need of the labor class. There was a need of the people who can do the labor work, and the language of the labor people is the English, right? And this is how this English language got this prestigious position in England, and this because everyone has to speak English now. So this is how English replaced all these languages of Latin and France, and came and got a very strong hold, right? So they also have a impact on that. Now we come after that on the writers. That is another part. Okay, so here I have write down some of the names of the writer. The first writer that we will discuss here is the John Skeleton. So John Skeleton was a tutor. He was a tutor of Henry VIII. He was a tutor of the Henry VIII, and he wrote some of the work. that you should remember from exam perspective. One is the Garland of Laurel, right? Another one is the Book of Philip Sparrow, right? Colin Clout, right? During this age, we also get to see the emergence in the dramas, your miracle, morality, mystery plays, right? Colin Clout published in the 1522. Their dates are unknown, right? So if and then we have the Magnificence. This is the one of the morality plays which is written by the John Skeleton, right? So make sure you write these plays down. The only one plays, what these plays. So there were 3 plays, and out of these 3 plays, this one of his plays survived. This is the morality plays, Magnificence, right? The another writer that we have is some of the writer during this time, they were working on the Bible as well. They were translating the Bible from the Greek and Hebrew languages, from the Latin languages, right? And trying to develop a standardized Bible that can be used in the churches, and the common people can have the exact knowledge that what was there in the Bible. So William Tyndall, he was a theologist, right, who studied the religion. William Tyndall translated the New Testament in the 1525, right? New Testament. He translated this from Greek and Hebrew language. Another one we have is the Miles Coverdale. He wrote, for the first time, he translated a complete Bible that was printed into English in the 1535. It is also called the Great Bible. What it is called? It is called the Great Bible as well, and it was published in the 1535. Okay, this is what you have to know about the Bible. Beside this, after Chaucer, what happened? That everyone was just imitating Chaucer in England, but there was no originality in their work. But there came into existence a group in Scotland who were following Chaucer, but they were doing something of their own. There was originality in their work, and that group is called the Scottish Chaucerian. Here we have the 4 writers, Scottish Chaucerian. They followed the Chaucer. We have the King James I, who used the rhyme royal stanza in his book called the King's Square, which also means the King's Book, right? He used here the rhyme royal stanza that was invented by the Chaucer. So he is one of the Scottish Chaucerians. Another one we have here is the Robert Henryson. Right, he wrote the Testament of Cressida, which is the continuation or the imitation of the work Troilus and Cressida, written by the Chaucer. Right? Okay, so these are the 2 Scottish Chaucerian. The third one is the Gavin Douglas. Gavin Douglas wrote a work called the Palace of Honor. Gavin Douglas wrote a work called the Palace of Honor. It was the imitation of the House of Fame, which was written by the Chaucer, right? So this is a work he has written. This is one of the famous work of the Gavin Douglas. He is the third Scottish Chaucerian we have. The fourth one we have is the William Dunbar, and he is considered one of the greatest poet after the Chaucer and before the Edmund Spenser. William Dunbar. He has wrote a very famous work called the Golden Targe, a famous allegorical work. Beside this, he wrote this work called the Three-Sella and Royce. Three-Sella and Royce. Alright, they have a very awkward name, Three-Sella and Royce, and it was about it was written on the marriage of the James IV, the King James IV, to the Margaret. So it was written to commemorate their marriage. But the most famous work is the Golden Targe, and another one is this one, and the Gibbon Douglas and the William Dunbar are the two other Scottish Chaucerian we have, and this is how we have completed them as well. Now, after this, we come to the main writer of this age, that is your Thomas Malory. Thomas Malory. Thomas Malory is famous for his work called the Les Morte d'Arthur. Morte d'Arthur. Published in the 1485, he wrote this work in the 8 books, but William Caxton divided this work into the 21 books. Right? Published in the 1485, which means the death of Arthur. Death of King Arthur. So it was about the King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. That's what this work is about. Now another writer of this age we have here is the Thomas More. Thomas More, who was beheaded by the King Henry VIII for opposing his divorce to the Catherine of Aragon. He wrote this work called the Utopia. Only after the search of the New World, right? When there were the discoveries happening of the new places, of the new land, only then the new ideas come to your mind. And he wrote this work called Utopia. Utopia means a good place and no place at the same time. Means there is no place as good as you're trying to create, right? So this is all imaginary. And what is a world he's creating through this work? He's creating a world that where everyone has access to the property. Like there you have, everyone has access to the public property. Means you can go and have fun in the villa of Ambani. You can use his car, you can use his swimming pool. The food and hospitals are free. This is the kind of world he is trying to create in his imagination. But there are few things where he has exaggerated and people denied, right, to follow them. He said that the slavery is permissible in this world, and the second thing which is permissible there, that the future couple which is about to get married can see each other bare clothes. They can see each other naked before getting married. So this is the world, this is a kind of world he's trying to create. And this book Utopia is written in 1560 in Latin. In Latin it was published in the 1516, and in English it was published in the 1551 but this version of translation is not that authentic. Every scholars give reference or cite this version that was translated in the 1684 by the Gilbert. Gilbert is the translator. Here the Ralph is the Robin Ralphson. Robin Ralphson is the translator here of this version that was translated in the 1551. But every scholar cite this version, which is published in the 1684 by the Gilbert. Okay, so another thing about Utopia is that we need to know there are few facts that you have to remember from exam perspective, that this book is divided into the 2 parts. The first part is the dialogue of council. Another one is the dialogue of Utopia. In the first one, the Thomas More, is introduced to the Raphael Hithlode. Raphael Hithlode. His name means expert of nonsense. Expert of nonsense. Right? That's what his name means. Expert of nonsense. And he is introduced to Thomas More by whom? Peter Giles, his friend. Beside this, there we have the two more characters. One is the clerk of Antwerp, and Antwerp, Antwerp. And another one we have here is the counselor of the Charles IV, counselor of Charles IV. These are the other character that we meet here. Okay. Now, beside this, as I told you, there are some rules he has made that every house should have 2 slaves, right? And the prospective couple get to see each other bare clothed before getting married, right? In order to be sure about their virginity. And these are the kind of rules he was putting there. And everyone has access to the land due to the sheep farming. So everyone have their sheeps, right? So this is the kind of world Thomas More is trying to create. It's a very long work. We can make a separate video on the Thomas More utopia, but this much knowledge is sufficient also from the exam perspective, even though a deep reading is needed. But here only this much we will be able to cover. And as you know, my Professor Noor provides you the complete preparation roadmap. We provide you guidance, mentorship, and the study material, and assure you that you will surely get your net JRF in a very first go. This is a kind of mentorship program we have developed where before appearing into the examination, your whole syllabus will be covered. There are revision sets, so we won't leave even a one single thing behind that can make you fail in this exam, right? So we will take care of every single thing in order to make sure that you qualify your exam in a very first go. Okay, so beside this, we have covered the Miles Coverdale, William Tyndall, Thomas More, we covered Thomas Mallory, we covered these Scottish Osirian. Yeah, there are 2 to 3 the women writers. You know, we have seen there is a clear absence of the women writers, right? Hardly 1 or 2. Only one in the 12th century, Maria de France, right, who has translated that Aesop or the fables of Aesop, right, in the Anglo-Norman language. Here we have the Margaret Campe. She wrote the book of Margaret Campe. It was the first autobiography by a woman that was ever written. Beside this, we have another one, Julian of Norwich. Julian of Norwich. She wrote the book called The Revelation of Divine Love. Revelation of Divine Love. The first known English language written book by a woman is this one. Christian de Pizan. There was, I think I am recalling the right name, Pizan. I think it was Pizan. Christian de Pizan. There is another woman writer which is called Pizan. She is the first professional woman writer, and she wrote a book on the misogyny. She speak out about women, the kind of sufferings they have to go through. She was a kind of feminist, you can say, and she was a very professional writer. The first professional writer was the Pizan. And then the first autobiography was written by the Margaret Campe. What was the name of it? The Book of Margaret Campe. Julian Norwich is the first woman who wrote the book in the English language. So now we got to know about the work, the Age of Renaissance in the England, right? How this Age of Renaissance reached to its peak, that is obviously in the age of the Elizabeth. It was the golden era, right? She gave the freedom She gave the sport. She patronized the art, literature, and that is the reason that we saw a lot of creative work during that age. All right. So this is about your age of revival and or your age of Renaissance. And yeah, these are the writers which are very, very important from exam perspectives. I hope you enjoyed the session. Very soon I'll be back with another relevant video. Till then, this is Bhupesh Sharma signing off.